Hello guys, welcome back. So in this video here we are going to create this simple application here where we are going to fetch the data from an API, and then we are going to display the image and the name of the actor and also the real name of this actor. So this one's going to be just a simple beginner tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, now before we begin here to start our coding, we can just come here to build.gradle, and you can see here there are several dependencies which I have added here. So you can just go to the link in the description box below and go to the GitHub page and copy these dependencies, and you're good to go. Now, also before we start here, let's jump to the website where we are going to get this data and familiarize ourselves with the endpoints and the URL which we can use them to retrieve this data. So this is the website here, and you can see this one is going to be hpapi.herokuapp.com. So you can just navigate to this website here and you can just get this. And here we have a list of several endpoints which we can just retrieve different data. And the creator is saying that is not going to be updating this API, but we can try to use it for different purposes like learning. So for now here, as you can see here, we have the characters, we have students, and for our case we are going just to focus on these characters here. So we can just right click here and we can open this inside a new tab here. And as you can see here, we have the data. So if you're just getting this raw data here, you can just open up here and search for JSON viewer online, and you can copy this and paste them, and you can just get something which is going to be neat like this one here. So here we have an array. So for example, if you see here, when you see these brackets here, these opening brackets here, this means an array inside a JSON. And when you see these curly braces, this means that we are going to have an object, and this object has several parameters. So for our case here, so if you open here our first item inside the array, which is an object, and this object contains, so for example in Kotlin this could be a data class, and here we have several properties which are going to be used to access them. And as you can see here, we have other curly braces which represents another object inside this object here, and this one represents the array. So we can just come here to this raw data here and we can copy this until to this place here, because we just want this one object here so that we can transform them. So I'm going to show you inside Android Studio how you can easily transform. As you can see here, we have a lot of data, and just creating these classes and other things could be difficult. So for example, if you have a lot of classes to create, so there is just a simple plugin which you can use to pass in the JSON and convert it back to a data class which can be easily used. So let's jump inside Android Studio and show you how you can do this. Okay, now so that we can bring that data class and change from the JSON to this Kotlin classes, we can just come here and we can press Ctrl Alt S here in order to go to the plugins. So if you're not just directly here, you can just locate this plugin here and select this, and you can come here and search for JSON. And as you can see, we have this JSON to Kotlin class, and you can just install this. So it's going to download this, and after that it's going to install it. Okay, now after installing this, now we can create here our data classes, and first and foremost here we can create several packages so that we can organize our code. So here we're going to create a data class. So here we're going to put inside here our data, and here we can create our API package. And inside here our API package, we can create another package here, and we can call this data. We can call this model. So here we are going to just get our models, and we can create a new Kotlin class, and you are going to get this Kotlin data class file from JSON. So we can do this, and we can paste here our code. And as you can see here, you can just navigate here to advanced, and we are going to change this, and we can come here to annotation, and from here it's just selecting none. So we can select this Moshi code gene, and then it's going to generate the code for us. And here we have to provide the name of this. So here we are going just to call this character. Let's click here generate, and as you can see here, it has generated 2 data classes. So we can just open up here, and as you can see inside here, now we have the character, and this has generated a lot of things for us. So as you can see here, we are going to use Moshi for passing the data from the JSON directly to here the Kotlin classes. So for our case here, we have the data classes, which is a character. So we are getting here from the JSON object, and then the Moshi converter is going to convert this to what Kotlin can easily understand. And for this case is the data class. As you can see here, it's going to generate the adapter. And when you see this, we are going to pass in here at JSON, and here we are passing a name. So there is different ways which JSON names their object or properties, and it's just different from Kotlin. So as you can see here, the server is going to send up the alternate, and then here we have this slash here, then we have actors. And as you can see here, the alternate colors, we have the naming convention for Kotlin. This must be a capital letter. So in order to change this, we can use this at JSON name, and the adapter is going to change up and match this to what we need. And for that case here, now we have our JSON, and when you come here, it has generated another class, which is going to be a warrant class here. If you want to use it, you can just get it, and also it generates an adapter. Okay, now here we can just come, and as you can see here, it is just returning a list of any, because this one is going to be empty, but the server is going to return here string, so we can change this to string. So sometimes you have to double check your data, because this object or this plugin is going to just generate these classes, and you can get weird crashes. So here we are just going to return alternate names from a list of strings. Okay, now we can change here the length from int, and this one must be a string, because the server is going to return a string. And you can find the documentation, for example, inside the website, which provide this. They will tell you the values, so, and their data types and other things. Okay, now I think we have finished to create here our models from the API. Now for now here we can create another data class here, another class which we can use it to store our constants. And as you can see here, I want to change the view of these packages here. You can just come here to compact, and we remove this middle. So I like when I finish things, I just collapse them. Now after that, there I can just create here another package, another class here, and this one is going to be an object, and I want to create the API constants. So this API constants here, we are going to host up our values or constants which we are going to use them. So we can create here constant val, and we can call this base URL. Okay, and here we can change, we are just taking that character there, that is going to be the endpoint. So the base URL is this here, which we have here, and this one is just called the endpoint. So we are taking up the endpoint here, and we can rename this to endpoints. So sometimes you can have a lot of parameters, so you can create another object which is going to hold up the API parameters, which you can just pass them when we are going to create the character API, or the service which is going to communicate, the retrofit thing which is going to communicate with the server. Now for that case here, I think we are finished up to create this API constant, so now we can just focus and create our character API. Okay, now here we can navigate to this API here and create a new Kotlin class, and now we're going to create an interface, and here we are just going to call this character API. Now after this here, now we have created here our API. Now we can use retrofit in order to configure here our get method, because we are going to fetch the data from the API. Now we can use here at get, and we can use this retrofit here to get, and we can just create a normal suspend function here, and now we can call this get character. And basically here, now you can, if you have parameters which you want to pass inside here, now you can pass them here. Now what we have to do here, we have to pass in the API endpoint, and we have already added inside our API constant, and here we can call this endpoints. And we are going to create later, when we are going to create the retrofit service, we are going to pass in the base URL. So this one is going to return a list, so we are going to call this list, and here now we can call a list of character, and now we pass in the list of character which we have created here. So this is what is going to tell retrofit to retrieve the data, and it's going to create here our request header, which is going to post them inside the server, and then the server is going to return the response. So we can just navigate here. As you can see here, we have a simple way which is going to create the header. As you can see here, we have the method here, which the HTTP method we are passing here. Then we have the path. For example, if we have parameters, it's going to be passed here. And then we have the protocol, which is going to be used for the browsing here. And as you can see here, now we have the request header which you are going to pass in, and we're going to leave this everything to Retrofit, so it's going to configure everything. What we have to do is just pass in the endpoint and the base URL, and everything else is going to be used by Retrofit. And if you want to intercept, for example, is where they come HTTP interceptors, or we can use OK HTTP to intercept the request and add other things which we want to send to the server. So for this case, now here we are done to create here our API, and now we can just collapse this API here, and we can create a new package here, and we are going to create our repository because we are going to use the MVVM pattern here. So we can create here our repository, and after that here now we can create a new class, and here we can call this character repo. Okay, now here we are going to use Dagger Hilt for dependency injection here. So we are going just to create here, and we want to inject the constructor. So we want to make this class to be created by Dagger Hilt, so we can inject a constructor by doing this way here. And after that here now we can create the dependence which we want to be passed here. So we can create private val here, and we want to get the character API. And after that now we can create here a suspend function, so we can get character. And this one is going to return a list of characters. And we can just use the character API. Now this one is just a simple application, that's why we are having not a lot of implementation here. So we are just getting here the character, and then we're going to return this character here to the where it's going to be needed. Okay, now here we have used here an annotation at inject constructor. So here we are telling Dagger Hilt to know that this class is going to be created like this, and here we are providing the dependency, and here the dependency is just the character API. So now Dagger Hilt knows how to create the character repository, but it doesn't know how to create this character API service. And this character API service is just an interface, and also it is just a third class party which we don't own. So we want to create the retrofit here, and in order to do this, now we have to create the modules. And here now we can just collapse this, and here we can create a new package, and here we can call this DI. So this stands for dependency injection. Now here we can create a new object, and we can call this character API module. So inside here now we are going to tell Hilt how we are going to create our code. So because here we don't own retrofit, and that is just inside an interface, and we cannot just constructor inject an interface like how we did here, because we used the constructor injection here and we injected the API here. And this one is just an interface, so we have to use this character module and tell Hilt how we are going to do this. And retrofit used a builder pattern in order to create the object. Now what we have to do, we have to provide here several annotations. So here we can annotate this with @module. And so now we are going to tell Hilt this is going to be the module, and this one is going to know how to provide the instance of these types which we are going to provide here. So after that, now we can just annotate this with @install in. So also this one is going to generate containers, because Hilt generate containers for certain code. So for example, if you want to provide a certain method and we want this to last in a scope of the application or in a scope of an activity. So for example, when the activity is going to be destroyed, and also the object is going to be also destroyed, or we can just use here, for example, you're going to use a singleton. So here we are just going to use the scope annotation here at singleton component. So we want this to be singleton component, and we can pass in here a class. So basically here now we have finished to annotate this. Now Hilt knows that we are going to add these methods here. So what we have to do now, we have to create and we have to provide here. So now we have the method here which we can use to provide, and here we can pass in add singleton. So here what we want to pass in is the builder. So now here at provide tells Hilt that is going to generate here a class, and this one is going to provide a character. So the return type here is going to tell how it's going to be this constructed, this object here, and we are passing here a retrofit builder. So this one is going to be the dependency in order to create this character API here, and we want to be this scope to the singleton component, so we don't want to be creating every time we access this object. So we want to have only a single object. Now we can return here a builder. Now we can build here, and we can return, we can create here now our class, and here we can pass in our character API. So basically here now we have returned our character API, but Retrofit does not know how to create this retrofit builder. Now we can create another method here. So we can just press Ctrl D and duplicate this method here, and now here we can provide. For now here we are going to provide retrofit, and this method does not have any dependence, and here we are just going to return retrofit.builder. Now here we can create our retrofit. Now we have to pass in here the base URL, and we can use the API constants here, and we can use the base URL, and then we can add here a converter factory, and here we are going to use the Moshi converter factory, and here we can use .create, and we can create here our Moshi converter factory. So basically we want to provide the converter factory here, and we are providing the Moshi converter factory. Now for this case here, now our API knows how to create. So what we have started here, we have here our constructor injection here. So we are telling Hilt that is going to generate this class, and its dependency is this character API. Now after this, we don't know how to create this character API, which we cannot constructor inject this class here. So what we have to do, we have to come here and create a module, and we have to annotate this with at module and at install in, and provide a scope this to be a singleton component class. And after that, now we can provide the method. So here we are just going to create our character API service, and after that, now we have to tell how to create the retrofit object, and here now we are just creating the retrofit, and now he knows how to create everything which we want. Now one thing which has remained here, now we have to create a class. Now we can just come here and create the application class, and this one is going to inherit from the application class. Okay, now here after we create this application class, we have to annotate this with @Hilt Android app. So this one is going to trigger the code generation, the Hilt code generation, and because everything which is going to be, the dependency is going to be inside this application class, so we can access it anywhere where we want. So when you press here Ctrl Q, you can see this one is going to make the application class where Dagger components should be generated. So this one is going to generate all the Dagger points which we want. And also here you can just come here to the main activity, and we want to annotate this with @Android entry point, and this one is going to be the entry point, and then it's going to create a graph where it's going to provide these dependencies. So as you can see here, mark an Android component to set up for injection with the standard Hilt Dagger Android component. Now for that case, we can now focus on our UI. I think we're just finished with creating the foundation of the data and making everything good. Now let's start here to focus on the UI part and hook up everything. Okay, now let's come here to this UI tab here, and we can open up here and collapse this theme here, and we can create a new package. And for now here, we are just going to call this home so that we can organize our code. And here now we can create a new cutting class, and here we're just going to create a file here, and here we are just going to call this home, and here we are just going to pass in the composables. So we can just refactor this here to home, and now inside here we can create a view model, and here we are just going to create a home view model. Okay, now here in order to tell Hilt how to inject this view model, we have the way which we can use at Hilt view model. And here it's just going to inject this, and what we have to do, we have to provide the at inject here, and we can pass in the dependency inside this constructor here. Now for example, here we can, because we want to get the repository, so we can just create here a private var, and we get our character repository. And here also we have to implement the view model. Now after that, here we can create a little bit of room here, and we can now create here a private val, because we want to get the state. Now we are just going to keep this, and we are just going to call this a state, and we can use a mutable state flow. And here we are just going to create an empty list for the first place. Now for that case here, we have to provide the variable which you can easily access the state here, and this one we are just going to provide a state flow. And now here we can provide the get method here, and we are going to get the state which we have initialized there as a private variable. Now for that case here, we can create an init block, so that when we are going to initialize this, we want to get the values from the API. Now we can call here the view model scope, and we can launch here the view model scope. And now what we have to do, we have to get the characters, so we can, now here we are going to get the characters, and then we can just use the state here dot value, and we can reinitialize these two characters. Now for this case here, we have finished to create our view model. Now let's focus on the part of composable here, so that we can finish up our application. Now let's create here a new composable, and this one we are going to call this home screen. And here now we can access the view model, so we can use val home view model. And here now we can get this home view model by using the view model function here, and we can pass in here the model class here, and this model class is going to be home view model, and we can use this class here. And after that, we want to get the state, and we can use a delegate method here. We can use the home view model, and we can get the state, and we can collect this as a state here. Now we can import the values. After that, here now we can use a lazy column. We want to display our content inside a lazy column. Now for that case here, we can pass in, we want to show a progress indicator if this state is going to be empty. So when we are fetching, we have to inform the user, so we can use here an if statement here, and we can get the state here, and we can check if this one is going to be empty. So if this one is going to be true, then we want to show a circular progress indicator. We can use the items here, so that we can add an item inside the composable. And what we can do here, we can use a circular progress indicator here. Now we want to pass in here a modifier, and we can pass in here a modifier dot fill max size, and we can wrap the content, and then we can pass in here the alignment, and we want this to be aligned center. Now let's create here a retro room, so that we can easily work with this. So for that case here, we have created our circular progress indicator here. Now we can add another items here, so that we can show our states here. So what we want to do here is not just a single items, so we want to pass in a list of items, and here we can pass in the state, and here we have a character. Now basically here we have a character. Now we can create another composable here, and we can call this character image card. Okay, now here we can pass in the character, and which we are going to get it here so that we can just get the data. Now what we can do here, now we can create the image painter. So this image painter here, we are going to use it to load we are going to use a coil image loading library so that we can load the images from the website here, because this one is going to do it asynchronously and efficiently. So we can call this remember, and basically here we can pass in the data. And here what we have to do, we can use the character and we can call this the image here, and because it provide a URL inside here, so you can check out the data which is going to be returned here. So we are going to fetch the image. Now what we can do here, now we can create here a card. So this one is going to hold up the image, and here we can pass in a shape, and here we can use a material theme, and we can pass in a medium shape. And what we can do here, we can pass in a modifier, and we can pass in here a padding of 16 dp. Now we can import this value here. Now what we want to do here, we want to display the name inside the image, so we can use a box here. Now we can pass in here the image, and we can use the image painter here, and here we can pass in null because we are going just to pass this. And now here we can pass in a modifier in order to provide the size, otherwise we are not going to load this image and we cannot get anything. So we must provide the size of these images. Now what we want to do here, we want to fill the max width, and we want to provide a height of 200 dp. Now we can provide here another thing which is called content to scale, so that we can scale, and here we can use fill bounds. So this one is going to scale until to fill the bounds of the size of this image holder here. Now what we can do also here, we can provide a surface, and now we can pass in here the color, and we can use the material theme. So what we are doing here, we're just getting the color from the material theme, which is going to be on surface, and we want to decrease the opacity here. So this one is going to be 0.3f. And so even if we change the theme here, for example, if we go to dark theme, so this one is going to be reflected automatically, so we don't have to worry of that thing. Okay, now here we can pass in a modifier, and we can pass in here modifier, and we can pass in here a line, and we can pass in here to be bottom center. So we want to align this to the bottom center, and we can pass in here the content color, and we want to use the content color here to be the surface here, because we are changing here, we are using on surface, and we want the content color to be on surface, so to be the surface color, which is going to be white here. Now after that here, now we can create a column, and we can fill in here the max width, and we can pass in here a padding of 4 dp. Now here we can pass in a text, and we can press here Ctrl D. Now here we can change this to actor, and here we can get the actor's name. Now for that name, I think we are finished here to call our UI. Now we can call this character inside here, so we can call our character, image card, and we can pass in here the character. Okay, now we can jump inside here our main activity, and now we can call here our character, our home screen. Now let's try here to run our application and see the output. So when we build up our project, we are getting here an error, and as you can see here, we forgot to apply this health. And what we forgot here, we can just come here to manifest, and we can add here the Android name. And here, as you can see, we have here our character application we forgot, and also we have to use the internet permission here, and we can pass in here internet permission. So otherwise our application is going to crash because we are going to use an internet. And also don't forget to add this application class here. Now let's try to rerun again our application and see. Now our app here is crashing, and when we come here to our logcat, we can see that we have a problem here. It's going to expect, it's providing an int and it's expecting another data type. So when we can come here to these models, and we can come here to characters, and I think here it is this year of birth, and it's returning an int, but this data type is a string. And because the API which is returning has no any documentation, so that's why we are getting this error. So here it's supposed to give us a string. Now let's try to rerun again application and see again. Now here the app is launched, and as you have seen there the loading, and we are getting here our data as we have fetched them from the API. So guys, let's leave it here. So if you find this video helpful, please don't forget to provide a like and subscribe for more videos. And if you want to learn something more complex and understand the clean architecture, you can check out the video on the right hand side here. See you in the next video. Bye bye for now. Thank you.